Hello and welcome to my channel. For those that are new here, my name is Elenia and this is Soft Skill Atelier, where I teach you all the skills you need to bring your fashion ideas to life, from concept to completion. This is part 2 of a tutorial series, Everything Pants Finishings. In the last tutorial, I explained how to construct and make some front pockets into pants. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to sew a classical front zip into pants. This is part 2 of the series and I'm going to continue right where I left on the last tutorial. So let's get started by looking at all the tools and materials we need to make a zip fly. I am showing you all the materials I'm using for the whole tutorial series to complete all details, so by the end of all tutorials you have the finished trousers. I am using a pants pattern I made in another video where I explain how you can trace your own clothes. If you want to get your own pattern, feel free to use my tutorial to do so yourself. To copy the pattern, I am using a transparent tissue paper. For the pants fabric, I am using this corduroy cotton fabric I bought on a designer's fabric stock sale. I need an extra fabric for the pocket lining. It should be thin and preferably cotton as well. I need fabric scissors and paper scissors, also some sort of fabric markers, a pencil, also maybe a thicker marker, some pins, and sewing yarn. I'm using a contrast yarn to make the stitches more visible, and a Z square, furthermore some weights and a zipper. Mine is 12 centimeters long. For material saving purposes, for this video I will create a very short pants and will only focus on the waist and hip area because that's where all the details are I will work on for this series. But that doesn't mean that you should do the same. Please make sure your pants are the right length on the pattern. When I prepared the pattern in the last video, I made sure that I added an extra 1 centimeter stripe where the zipper is going to be. That stripe should exactly be the length of your zipper. In my case, it is 12 centimeter. I cut the two front sides of the pants identically. I will eventually cut the extra stripe away on the second side. Next, I will prepare some extra pieces of fabric that I would use as the fly facing and the fly guard. The guard and the facing should also be the same length than the zipper. I cut the guard 12 by 4 centimeters on the fold, and the facing I cut 12 by 5 centimeters not on the fold. Here I won't use it double but only one layer of the fabric. Starting with the fly guard. This is how everything together will eventually look like. I first sew this little typical curve at the end of the guard, having the higher side of the curve on the folded side of the guard. I mark the line I want to sew with a fabric marker and start sewing. After I have finished that little curve, I cut away the corner of the guard so I can flip it inside out. I give the guard a good press with the iron to enforce the contours. Next, I assemble the zipper with the guard and the pants. Note, I am making the opening the menswear way because that's also the classical denim way, meaning the opening of the zipper is facing to the right side when you are wearing the pants. If you want to have the opening the other way around, just do everything mirrored to how I do it. So the zipper comes on top of the extra stripe at the front middle. The front of the zipper should face towards the fabric. I secure it with a bunch of pins to keep it in place. In the end, the zipper will be sandwiched between the outside layer and the zip guard, but first I only sew on the zipper on the outside fabric. To sew on the zipper, I need an extra sewing foot to sew closer to the actual zipper. The zipper foot is only half the width of a normal foot and can therefore sew much closer to the bespoken zipper. And now the first side of the zipper gets stitched on. Very important here is not to forget the backward stitch to lock the beginning of the seam. The zipper slide can be in the way while sewing, so that's why I have to sew around it by stopping and lifting the sewing foot to slide the slider up and down. While I'm lifting the foot, I need to make sure I keep the needle in the fabric so that I don't lose my position of the last stitch I made. And next, I sew on the guard in the same manner right on top of the zipper. And that's how fast the first side of the zipper is sewn in. To secure the zipper's position and keep everything more firm, I add another top stitch right next to the zipper on the outside fabric. Moving on to the other side, starting with the facing piece, this one also gets rounded up on the bottom right corner and framed by an overlock seam. Before I sew on the facing, I need to cut back the extra 1 cm stripe for the zipper I cut out on both sides of the pants but only needed on one side. Then I will pin on the facing on the straight line of the center front outside facing each other and sew it on with a straight stitch. I'm still keeping the zipper foot on, even though with this seam I don't need it, but I will need it soon again for the other side of the zipper, so for me there is no point in changing the foot. But if you're struggling to sew a proper straight line without the normal foot, I'd recommend you quickly switch back to the normal foot. Next, I will sew together the crotch seam. That would usually also be the moment where you sew together the two legs on the whole crotch seam, all the way to the back. In this video I only sew the front part of the pants and therefore I only close that short part below the zipper. Important here is that I line my crotch seam up with the seam that comes down from the zipper. Now it's already quite visible how the zipper fly comes along. So now it's time to focus more on the fly facing. I cut back the seam allowance of the facing a bit so that the center front of the pants doesn't look too bulky. Then I fold it back and press it firmly to have a well-defined front line. Next, I'm turning the pants to the front because the front opening needs to be properly placed to determine where exactly the second side of the zipper will be placed. To make sure nothing falls apart as soon as I move the pants, I pin the front opening shut in the exact way I want the pants to look in the end. Then I flip the pants back to continue working in the inside. Then I'm flipping back the fly guards to access the zipper and the facing. I will now pin the second side of the zipper on top of the facing and then sew those two and only those two together. So far so good. The zipper shuts. Before I sew on the facing to the front fabric, I make one more extra top stitch along the crotch line to secure the area below the zipper. It's a close stitch next to the seam. I fold the seam allowance to the side that I'm sewing on. I fold it over to the side with the facing to visibly continue the line from the zipper opening. As soon as I have reached the opening, I sew 2 stitches to the side and secure them. Now onto the inside again. I sew on the facing to the front part to achieve the typical rounded stitch. I follow the edge of the overlock seam I have sewn on the edge of the facing that comes up from the crotch line. There I turn 90 degrees and make 2 stitches upward and lock it with a backward stitch. After that, I turn the pants around and start top stitching a parallel stitch next to the curved stitch I just made. This time making sure I also sew through the guard fabric behind. This secures the guard from flapping around and keeps it in place. Right after the curve, again I make a 90-degree angle and lock the stitch. After moving the guard out of the way so I don't sew on it anymore, I continue with the same parallel stitch all the way up to the upper edge of the pants. This second stitch is more an aesthetical decision and appears mainly in more durable, solid pants like jeans or workwear. You can also just work on one seam instead and secure the guard with a few extra stitches on the bottom of the curve. And that's it. This is how you sew a classical zipper fly into pants. If you still have some questions, please ask me everything in the comments and also let me know if this video was helpful for you. And if you like what I do, don't hesitate to like and share this video and obviously also subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much and I see you next time. Bye!